TOA community, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Robert Linkul, traintheolderadult.com. Nice to see you all, and welcome to Wednesdays with Robert. This is episode number 32, and we are going to talk about a tiny bit of a selfish topic. Okay, number one. Because it pertains to 1.5% of the people out there that could possibly have a Buford complex in the shoulder. And the reason for this is I got a message from a gentleman. I don't know how to say your name. Yav Khan, okay? Sent me a message yesterday. He said, "Hi, I saw your post a while back about your Buford complex. Can I ask you some questions?" I said, "Sure, fire away." He says, "I'm 22 and I've had shoulder pain for 8 years, mostly anterior. However, all MRIs and ultrasounds are clean. I have tried everything." Goes into all of his processes. Nothing has helped. Recently, one radiologist said it looks like I have a Buford complex. I can't bench press or do pushing movements without pain, and I am pretty fit, but is concerned he's doomed to have the shoulder issue. I haven't found much research on it. Can you help me? And I said, "Sure. I'll make you a video." We went back and forth, and here we go. So much to my surprise, when I searched for this, one of my videos was the first thing that came up, and I was shocked. There's videos, of course, of someone showcasing like an MRI or a surgery on a Buford complex. But as far as content goes, my video of me working on the tank was the very first video that appeared on the internet, which I found to be, I was shocked about that. And then I think 6 or 8 more posts of mine where I have commented on it were in the top 10 searches. So he's right, there's not a lot of information out there. A couple of the research articles that I found on it were like 1994, 97, 2003. So not a lot of recent research on there, and that's for a reason, okay? So I signed up for Sports Injury Bulletin. This is a pretty cool website. They go deep into really major medical issues that are, I guess you could say, inspired by professional athletes and some of the injuries that they experience. So Chris Malik is a author, a writer for them, and he seems to have a little bit of an expertise in the shoulder. And in this particular article, which really dives deep onto this, they were looking at the Wizards guard, John Wall, and they found that he has a Buford complex in his shoulder. There are a couple of other high-level athletes that that have the same shoulder injury. The article goes on to discuss, number one, how rare it is. Anywhere between 1.5 and like 5% of shoulder injuries have a Buford complex to it. They talk about the basic anatomical makeup of the shoulder. It gives you all the little acronyms here. The MGHL, the middle glenohumeral ligament. That's the one that's probably referenced the most. And this figure really does a good job of showing you like what a normal shoulder. If you were looking right down the camera here at me and I were to just slice all this off so you could look right into me here, this is what you would see. So the glenoid fossa, that's the center, okay, that's the middle of the, let's call that the bony part going into my shoulder, right? And then around that is the labrum. And the labrum makes a full 360 all the way around a healthy shoulder, okay? You can see, hopefully you see my mouse on here. The full 360 all the way around, okay, the shoulder here. And then you have the biceps tendon that comes up off of that. Everybody see that right there? The biceps tendon, biceps brachii. And then in front of that, you have the coracoid humeral ligament, and then you have the middle glenohumeral ligament. That's the one we were just talking about. And you have the superior one just above that, and your supraspinatus tendon is in front of that, and so forth. So it shows all the other musculatures around it. So kind of keep that in mind, keep that snapshot in mind. That's what it's supposed to look like. Now, for 1.5% of us, this is what ours look like. And I went into my medical records. I wanted to try to show you my MRIs, but I couldn't find it and access it. All I had was a write-up which says that I've been diagnosed with a Buford complex. So that's all it says. I wanted to give you more in details, but literally one line. So same setup, your glenoid fossa in the center, and then look at the labrum, okay? See how the labrum is basically missing about a third, and that is the problem here. Bicep tendon still is gonna reach off of that. All your other ligaments still reaching off of that, and then the middle, it's like a cord-like, that's a cue, a term that is used in a lot of the research and a lot of the instructions, or I guess I would say descriptions from doctors and researchers, is this cord-like middle glenohumeral ligament. It's not this big, fatty, meaty one like you saw here. Look how thick and dense it is, just like the others. This one's really thin, and it's very cord-like coming through, which creates instability. So for a really good number of us with the Buford complex, basically posterior pressure creates anterior subluxation sensations, like your shoulder's gonna pop out of socket. Best example I can give you, if I'm laying on my right side, so on the bed is here, and I've got my arm out in front of me so my wife can lay here and we can spoon, right? Which we cannot do this because of the shoulder injury. If we were to fall asleep and then I were to start to like, oh, I'm gonna reposition and slide back, my arm will it'll just pop right out. It seems like it shouldn't. Like it should be this secured, locked in joint. It just slides right out, guys. It doesn't dislocate, but it sublux a little bit and it hurts really bad. When all your joints are designed to be 100% tight all the time. They're not designed to be like, well, let's give them, 20% wiggle room. It's designed to just be like, lock that shit down. This thing isn't going to move. It's secured all the way through. There's no wiggle room. There's no play. So when you take something that is designed to be 100% tight, 30% of its security system is gone. So let's look at a hand here like this, like 30% gone. So what do we have now? We have this little spot where things can just slip out whenever. What do you think all the ligaments and the tendons and the musculature around that do when you slip and then it goes back? When you get a little sublux, what do you think happens? It's like rolling your ankle. You don't twist your ankle just a little bit. Your ankle either goes, dude, you just went too far. You just exceeded range of motion. So here we go. We're swelling, right? We're aggravated. Your ankle's like a puffer fish, right? Your ankle's like, I'm fine. Defense. Puffs up and it flows. That's the idea of the bursa inside a joint, is it's gonna swell. It's like an airbag in a car, okay? As soon as it's like danger, it just blows up. Secure this thing, lock it down. That's kind of the idea of the bursa, which you have a bursa in every major joint, if not every joint, I don't know exactly, but every major joint for sure in your body has a bursa. And a very good analogy, not real, but a very good analogy, is like a deflated rubber balloon in every one of those joints. And anytime you sprain it, strain it, exceed range of motion, that balloon, it puffer fishes up and it defends. And that's why you get swelling in that area. It's a self-defense technique, but it's also due because of damage and exceeded range of motion, okay? Again, for all you medical folks out there, I'm very much so generalizing. Not my area of expertise. I'm just giving some general ideas of how your body defends a little bit against these issues, okay? So because we have this area where the labrum, all the musculature is there for support, but the labrum is kind of like, think of a clam, and you're trying to pry that clam open to eat the meat on the inside. Once you kind of pull it open a little bit, can you just say, oh, I'll stop and it'll go back? No, that's damaged, right? It'll just open to that spot. You've ripped that fiber apart. It's not going back together. Once you rip it all the way apart, you're like, okay, this thing's dead. Now I can eat it. That's kind of the same idea here. We just tore it 30%, and now that's just how it is now, okay? So you can't be like, well, I'll just let it grow back. We don't have that. We don't have it. So what'll happen is not the cord-like material tears, because that's a ligament that you have, but it was described in there, and I felt this as well, that cord, okay, is almost like laminated, if you will. Just to give another example, it's kind of like laminated down here in the missing spot of the labrum until you damage it at one point. I was in Canada demonstrating an overhead press, and as I'm pressing, I press the weights up, and as I was coming down, mine popped, and I thought I tore a tendon or a ligament in my shoulder. It hurt that bad. It was at the beginning of a presentation, so I now had the rest of that 90 minutes that I went through with my shoulder throbbing and hurting. Had to just play it off like nothing happened. I don't know if anyone even noticed it. I didn't have to drop the weight or anything, but my arm went from here and it just popped. And I went, ooh, and I set that down. I'm like, oh, that felt weird. And I just kept going, but it just got worse and worse. It swelled up, aggravated, tough flight home. So that's when I ended up having to go to the doctor. We go through this. Okay, should we do injections, blah, blah, blah. Testing a little bit. And they go, man, something's just not right here. Let's go get an MRI. I was able to talk to my doctor. I've been through a lot of stuff. I've had 17 surgeries. I've had cancer twice. I've had 3 hip replacements, back surgery. I've had a lot. So when I go to my doctor and I'm like, something's not good in my body, he doesn't just go to the basic, like, well, let's start with some, he's like, we get it. You know your body well. Let's go to the MRI. So I'm able to kind of get in there right away, get that checked, and then, okay, this is what we find, right? So when you look at this in a little bit greater, well, not greater detail, it's a very general photo, but or image, the semi-normal shoulder, the one in the middle there, will have a little bit of spacing, but it's still fully supported all the way around, where you can see in the Buford how thin that wall is there and how lacking of support our shoulder has in that direction. So as things continue to move and we try to articulate and bench press or chin up or throw or do anything like that, we're basically lacking the support of the labrum that's supposed to be here, and that is just open space. And so we are prone to subluxation, and then eventually, if you don't build enough strength in there, dislocation, I would assume at some point. So he goes deep. There you go. This cord-like MGHL originates directly from the superior labrum and the base of the biceps tendon, crosses the subscapularis tendon to insert on the humerus. So basically, it goes like this. Okay, that's that noise goes with it. And it's the labrum is missing from the antro superior part of the glenoid to the remaining labrum. The other 3/4 of that are all intact. So like that front quarter to front third, gone, okay? The article continues to talk about this. The Buford complex indicated it was fairly rare. Oh, it was 6.5, sorry. 1.5 to 6.5% of those shoulder injuries have experienced this. The slap lesion or the slap tear is very, very similar and definitely experience this. When I do all the laundry in our house, okay? I am the laundry connoisseur. My wife does all the dishes. On rare occasion, I will assist with the dishes. On rare occasion, she'll help with the laundry. These are our job duties. We like our job duties, okay? Reason I'm telling you this is I do a lot of laundry. 4 people, we all work out, go through a lot of clothes. So when you take a towel, a t-shirt, anything, and you do this, you do that little action, if I am not locked in, secured with my shoulder, that hurts a lot. That can ruin my day, okay? The slightest little, like a towel flick, like any kind of response that's fast, slapping actions like that, if I'm not locked in, it hurts a lot. So as soon as I saw that, I went, yeah, that's 100% accurate. The like slap action, the quick little slaps, if I'm trying to throw anything or do anything, it's really challenging, okay, to be able to do this correctly. They had, where was the one? Okay, there you go. Group of Japanese researchers found that a case study, patients with Buford complexes suffered from recurring posterior dislocation of the shoulder. That's dislocation. I've never dislocated my shoulder. I have subluxed it safely 100 times. I mean, it moves a lot, guys. And I'm talking just a little whoop, like it's just a little slip, but it happens all the time. I would almost say weekly. Like that's, and I put a lot of work into making this thing as secure as I can. But when you're missing this piece, if you're not just locked in constantly, you're a third to a quarter to a third exposed. So it just doesn't really matter. Okay. A little bit further, a little more information talks further about the slap lesions, and then they go into, let's see, where was the other one I wanted to highlight? The glenohumeral instability, that was another big one. So when we talk about rowing and pressing and pushing and pulling, we're gonna have to take some steps to make sure we're stabilizing this joint in I would call optimal, like the most optimal positions to train in. So we're securing and developing strength, but not exposing it and hurting it in the act of doing so. That's the hardest part, is like, I can do any lift. This gentleman can do any lift. It just hurts afterwards really bad. There's an exposed component that as we're pressing or doing whatever we're doing, because that missing piece is there, you're probably rubbing in and out of a secured position, which is just creating aggravation. So you have to find positions where that MGHL, that ligament, is not going to move or be manipulated over and over again. But we also have a tendency to over-aggravate that because it's the only thing securing the front side of that shoulder for the most part, right? So this can lead to frozen shoulder type situations because people don't want to use their shoulder because it hurts all the time. So as you age with this, if you don't use this, you'll lose this, and that's a huge component for us. So wrapping up here, in just 1.5 to 6.5 of the shoulders, this does occur. Overhead components can be really, really difficult. Limiting external rotation at both 45 and 90 degree angles for abduction. That's basically the subscapularis shoulder rotator cuff test. There's a big positive on this. And in most cases that I read about, most cases with a Buford complex, the subscapularis, or not subscapularis, excuse me, the supraspinatus rotator cuff tears. There was I don't know if it showed in there. I want to say like 65%. That might have been the number we just saw. Don't go. Well, I can go back real quick, I guess. Hold on. Okay, in these studies, the 2.5% of Buford complexes from there also had slap lesions. 83% of them had slap lesions compared to the 70% in the shoulder without a Buford complex. Okay, so one of the other articles I guess I was reading, I should have grabbed a picture of that, talked about the supraspinatus. There was a very high likelihood, if you have a Buford complex, of your supraspinatus being torn. Mine is torn as well. So I have one of my 4 rotator cuffs is torn, and I'm missing a quarter to a third of my labrum, which again is exposing the shoulder to high susceptibility of injury / instability, okay? So when we're doing all the lifts that we're gonna do, and I'm gonna show you a bunch of the ones I'm doing, our heavy emphasis is on building security to the backside of the shoulder, all the way around it really, but the backside of the shoulder, and then as neutral of a grip as I can make, the better. The more pronated I am, the more aggravated I am. So you won't see me pronating wide with bench press. You're gonna see I'm hugged in tight all the time. All of my rows, my shrugs, my curls, everything is pulling up and back, up and back, up and back. I'm securing the posterior aspect of my shoulder girdle as best as possible. And I'm just doing this to the best of my abilities. The Buford complex is a rare but apparently normal variant of the shoulder anatomy. I don't know how normal that is. However, some authors have suggested that its presence may create overload to other structures of the shoulder that restrain movement, such as the bicep tendon and the rotator cuff. Because the bicep tendon has to do more to help secure the front, and the rotator cuff the labrum is now missing 1/4 to 1/3 of its stability, the rotator cuff has to kick in to help stabilize. If you're not in good positions, or if you're weak in this area, as you ask all these other musculatures, the bicep tendon and the rotator cuff, to do more work, one of them or multiple of them can be overloaded and abused and then suffer damage. And in my case, bicep tendon, knock on wood, is good, but my supraspinatus tore. I constantly interchange subscapularis and supraspinatus. My supraspinatus tore. So I have a dead supraspinatus. It's black on imaging. It's like not getting any flow, blood flow, anything. Okay. So because of this, I've had this overload injury. The structure has occurred, okay, or to my structure, to that it has occurred. Its presence needs to be considered in athletes who present with repetitive shoulder pain that is attributed to a rotator cuff lesion or a slap lesion. So out of those individuals that experience shoulder pain, they're having rotator cuff problems, they're having slap response injuries, their abduction, subscap, supraspinatus, rotator cuff tear test is positive, there's a likelihood, 1.5 to 6%, 6.5, whatever that was, percent chance that it's because of a Buford complex, okay? And you're just lucky, I guess, if you're one of the ones that that happens to. So here's some videos of some of the lifts that I do. I call this a anti-arthritic row. Mind you, this is on a flywheel, and I credit the flywheels, these eccentric flywheels, okay, my guys here, eccentric, I credit them with this product with helping my shoulder a ton, because the eccentric component to these flywheels, it recruits so much muscle engagement, it really helps you lock things down. So I'm not telling everybody out there, you need to go buy one of these, because I know they're not cheap. Posterior strength development is great. Eccentric training is going to be very valuable for you, okay? But if you get a chance to work on a flywheel-based eccentric device, I think it's only going to benefit you greatly, okay? Greatly. So when you see these, all the actions that I'm doing, everything I'm demoing on here, everything, if you see me working on a strap or a pulley like this, it's connected to a flywheel. I do these daily, literally every single day. I have a whole shoulder routine that I do just to work on the strength and stability of my shoulder on a regular basis, but it's also my primer to get it ready to go for the day. So this is anti-arthritic, so I'm working the extensors of my forearm, the extensors in my hand as I'm working this kind of chest pull, face pull angle. Now, the higher I get, the more uncomfortable my shoulder can be. So you will see me pull to my chin, but that's about as high as I get. But that constant up and back retractability is really key. My next one, single arm supported presses overhead. I can do, however, they're uncomfortable if I'm not in the perfect positions. Rotating out to a pronated grip and back is really difficult. I will do like a half Arnold. I'll start inside and then I'll end up in kind of a 45 degree as I'm pressing overhead, but rarely, if ever, I really don't get to a full 90 degree pronated lockout at the top, unless I have some support. And that's where these pivot points really come in handy. The instability of these kettlebells swinging and swaying creates a lot of recruitment, constantly trying to find ways to get more muscle engagement throughout the full range of motion. Here are the flywheels incorporated into the pivot point. This was one of the hardest exercises I've done. That's a constant work at the shoulder, but it's really good work to be done. Now on to bench pressing. You'll see a couple of different angles here. And again, this is a little burnout, so I'm just kind of partial repping and doing a bunch of reps, but you can see my elbow angle where I'm bringing my elbows drastically in front of the bar. They're in really close. I'm inside 45 degrees on my elbow angle there. Instability with the kettlebells on the bar. These are, 3-4 second negatives with a pause at the bottom, but notice that position with my elbows at the bottom here. I really work that tuck, that shoulder blade retracted, abduction, chest up, shoulders under position, because I'm trying to reduce the amount of stress. The further my elbows start to drift up, the more discomfort and pain I'm starting to feel in there. So you really want to consider and think about as neutral grip as you can get, or close to 45 degrees in, and working these angles that are, I would say, sternum height. I've tried benching to my throat like the guillotine type approaches. It just hurts me more than anything. I will go to sternum, even manubrium, like low manubrium xiphoid. I'll work all the way down, and not you want to contact your xiphoid. I just mean at the lower, like distal end of my sternum. I'll work into that angle because it's more comfortable for my shoulder. Does it give me more pectoral stretch? No, it puts a lot more stress on my triceps, which I'm okay with. I'm able to get chest work, but I'm doing the best I can to not stress and aggravate my shoulder at the same time. So this is one of the ways that I can bench. One of my favorite versions of bench, I'll do these, I won't call them a strip set because I'm not stripping weight, but grip sets, okay, I'll call it a grip set. I'll start with a grip where my index or my ring fingers are around the knurling, smooth knurling ring. And I'll do like 6 or 7 reps. I'll set the bar on my chest, slide my hands in one finger. I'll do another 6 or 7, slide my hands in another finger and do another. So I'm continually getting closer as I'm getting more fatigued, to just giving me more security into the shoulder. The tighter I am in here, the better my shoulder feels, okay? Anatomically, that seems to make less sense in terms of if you're like creating external, outward, external rotating, forward anterior pressure by pulling your arms in. Would that not move closer towards pushing, the head of the humerus out? Not so much. It's creating a recruited, retracted structure underneath that stabilizes an angle so you can work it. So it's a battle that I feel like in most cases are going to be challenged because of the individual and what they're feeling. But is this like everybody with a Buford will have this? I don't think so, but I think it'll be close, okay? My best overhead action is the snatch. Very difficult for me to clean and press to an overhead position, but I can snatch, I can throw weights over my head, receive them there, and then eccentrically bring them down. So that's where I'll get a lot of my deltoid focused overhead pressing work, is just through eccentric snatch returns, okay? Now in this one, I'm doing a tempo lift, so it's a little faster, but we'll do lifts like this, obviously around Christmas time, where I'm doing this snatch, just chuck the weights over my head and then eccentrically bring them down an extra second or two, okay? Just working that momentum. This is kind of a conditioning component here too, where I'm working heavy reps, but that gives you a little idea of how I can work that overhead action, okay? Straight arm pull downs, pullovers are very comfortable for me, but sometimes can create some subluxing feeling as well. So I'll do a straight arm pull down. Horizontal rows, notice my shoulder retractability. I'm working that upper shoulder girdle a lot. Up, high pulls, up, pull apart, sternum height, clavicle height. Get that good rip, up, pull apart, all the way into bicep curls and hinged rows. Just finding all these different targeted angles to work around that that girdle, that shoulder girdle, think of a upside down J around your shoulder, right? Hooking around the shoulder up towards the top. I want to just try to find as much work as I can get around that cuff, that girdle, that posterior chain, emphasis on the back side of my shoulder. Even though, if you look at the anatomy of this, the scapula, I don't have a tendency to, what am I trying to say here? I don't have a tendency to where my shoulder feels like it's going to weaken or displace posteriorly, even though that Japanese research study showed that it did. What mine has is more of an anterior displacement due to the lack of frontward stability. So you would think, well, we want to train your pec and your bicep more to help kind of lock that thing down. It's quite the opposite, because for every agonist, there's an antagonist. You are only as strong as your weakest link in this case. So I train biceps, I train pecs, we train all these angles. All the musculature gets pretty even work. I'm probably getting, I don't know, maybe an extra 30% posterior chain, upper shoulder blade, upper trap, rhomboid, all that to help with the security of my shoulder. The more that I do that, the better that it feels. The less pronated, high angle pulling or pressing I do, the better it feels. The less pronated, strict pressing overhead, the better it feels. You have to learn what angles that you can lift on that are going to give you a negative return, a positive return with some aggravation, and then a positive return with no aggravation. And it doesn't mean that you don't train those other areas. You just need to find the thing that works the best and the most efficient for you. And there's just certain things I cannot do incline bench press. I cannot do incline chest flies. Tears me up big time. Even with the lightest weights and all this. So you think, well, maybe this is an angle that I need to attack. With general weakness of a muscle, I would say that. But when you have you're lacking structural support, there's nothing I can do about that. I could build up all the muscles I want there. It's still going to be structurally weak in that position. So it comes down to being as smart as you can with this particular injury, learning your angles and your areas of pushing, pulling, and pressing. So to close this up, I would suggest to my guy here again. I don't even want to try to say your name, so I'm sorry. I'm saying it wrong. Yoav, Yav. Okay, Yav. Here's what I would suggest, bud. If you can get a Swiss bar bench press with either a neutral grip or a 45-degree angle grip, I think having that neutral grip bar, a bilateral stabilizing bar, is probably one of the better options for you now. Even though you could always just grab dumbbells and do this unibilateral, my made up word, 2 implements at the same time though, but independently stabilized. I think there's good benefit there. However, I want you to be able to move some load. And it's like, if your shoulder structure ability is not super strong, a good way to develop that is through bilateral lifting, but we've got to be in the right position, hand and grip wise, to be able to support that. So I have a Swiss bar that I use here. It's a neutral grip. I wish I had one that had the different angles, right? And I think I would probably do better with like a 35 or a 30-degree angle. But again, that you find things that work for you. So if you can find one of those, I would do that. I would look into creating some strap pivot point press type lifts that I think could be really beneficial for you. Some of these guys, right? I would encourage you to try to look into some way to these are just like rings that you would do inverted rows or muscle ups if you're a badass athlete. Those are just straps that you would hook rings to, and then I have a bar that crosses, and you're good to go. You could use a ripstick, anything like that. Okay, find angles and find lifts that will give you support on the pivot point, that will give you the right angle to bench press with. And by right angle, I mean the correct or most comfortable angle to bench press with. Creating instabilities by hanging kettlebells or weights or bands on there that create extra muscle recruitment is only more beneficial, okay? So if I take barbell and I'm hanging weights off of it like I'm doing here, those weights swing and they move as I'm moving the bar through range. That's going to create extra recruitment of musculature in my shoulder to help stabilize, to help lock that thing in. That's what I want, okay? So as I'm recruiting more musculature to help me work through this range, because of the instability, I'm creating more strength and more structure and more stability in my shoulder joint. So I think that can be very beneficial for you as well. All kinds of pulls and rows and anything where you're bringing weight towards you. And the stronger you get in this upper, I call it like that shrug, like, I don't know, kind of shrug strength. The more you build up in there, the better, my man. Get your biceps really strong. I would avoid the preacher curl. Any preacher forward bicep slacking positions I find to be more detrimental than good. One of my favorite is a flat bench bicep curl. So I'm on a flat bench with my elbows down towards the floor and I'm dropping the weights towards the ground. Granted, this creates a great stretch, but it gets you a ton of bicep work. It gives you a lot of shoulder stability in this open exposed position, but you get really strong there. So start light, build your way into this. And I think these examples and finding the most efficient ways for you to train, it's going to take time. Don't give up. Multiple times he put on there, I feel like I should just give up. Am I lost? You're not, man. Trust me, okay? It's going to take a long time. I was diagnosed with this like 5 or 6 years ago. I'm still figuring it out. Like we're still finding more ways or more efficient ways for me independently to be able to train this. But you can tell by looking at my body, I am lacking deltoid development because of this. Like I can't train it as much as I would like to, okay? But this is the cards that we're dealt. So we're gonna do the best we can with what we have. And in doing that, let's get the backside of your shoulder and the backside of your body really strong. Build that bicep and as much as you can, and find ways to attack your pecs, probably with your arms in real tight when you're benching and doing stuff, to be able to continue to grow that musculature, but not aggravate or injure yourself at the same time. All right, for those of you without a Buford complex or shoulder injuries, I hope this wasn't too boring. There's always stuff to learn, always things to discuss. Is there a high likelihood that you're going to, train someone with a Buford complex? No, but is there a high likelihood of a slap tear somewhere? Absolutely. And the protocol and the training component for this is exactly the same. Everything we just talked about, it's basically we have slap tears. It's just instead of the slap tear occurring because of an injury in sport or something like that, this was just a genetic defect, basically, that we were born with and we have to deal with. So very similar components. I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry for the long rants. And my guy, I hope you get some good things from this, that you can start to develop your strength and gain your confidence back and get your shoulders strong. But don't give up, man. Never give up on this. Keep training, lift for your entire life. Keep your body as strong as you can, and stay the course. Much appreciation, everybody out there. I love you all. I hope you're doing great. Have a lovely day. And please subscribe, like, comment down below. Help us grow our channel. We continue to push towards more subscribers, so thank you. And then continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia. We'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.